Swimmer Steve, how are you doing today?
I am great, thank you. I just had my Kona coffee and I'm ready to play.
Kona Coffee. Yeah,
You,
for those of you guys who don't know, I met Steve when I was living down in Kona, and I call you Swimmer Steve because I remember the first person that I met. Um, I met somebody after you in the gym that I was like, hey, I met this great guy named Steve, and they're like, oh, Swimmer Steve, like it was your name. But I remember so vividly how we met. I was doing pull-ups on that machine, and you were facing me, and you were clearly doing like rehab type strength training, like press training, for your shoulder. And I was doing pull-ups and I was trying to help you. Little did I know how much you knew about the body and everything.
yeah,
Because I have a good friend who just got through shoulder surgery, and hanging on a bar was really good for opening it back up and stretching it. And something about when we started talking, Steve, the undivided attention that you gave me brought me in. I have to tell. I don't know if I ever told you that, but it made me. I was like, even though I was the one talking, I was like encapsulated in your energy, and it just made me want to, keep chatting with you. And of course, we kind of chatted throughout the gym that day, and stayed in touch since. And Steve is he has been to the pinnacle of the game in swimming for coaching too. Ran the Ironman, ran the Ironman event in Kona that most people might know Kona through, and a million other great stories. Recently, a world champion in
yeah.
swimming, right? That is awesome for the 70 and up. That is amazing. What's what have you been working on now? I know you're working on swimming, getting through some injuries and stuff, right?
Yeah, I had a shoulder replacement, so it's a long recovery. So as you said, doing a lot of rehab and stuff like that, and have been in the water mostly with fins on and one arm, and just it's been really frustrating. But just about a month ago, I was able to swim freestyle finally. Um,
I
And
see
so
the
that's kind
smile
of
on your
secretly
face.
trying to train and maybe do some racing, at this age group and a new age group. I swim freestyle and butterfly pretty well, and I've been able to do a little backstroke actually. So I haven't swum backstroke since I was like 12. But I was going to go to Japan to a world championship meet, but they canceled it because of COVID. But I've got maybe 6 months, and if I don't fall apart in the meantime, I'll try to go. You need a little goal, to shoot for. I'm retired from coaching, so I'm able to travel and just try to stay fit.
Yeah, that I think it's amazing. I know to you it's just trying to stay fit, but you're chasing these goals and dreams, and it's an inspiration to just absolutely never quit, and it also helps put things in perspective, right? So I just turned 28. This is the first time that I've ever, in my teens and early 20s, I never needed to stretch, Steve. I could lift heavy 7 days a week, run hard 7 days a week. Stretching recovery was a joke. Didn't even need to sleep
Exactly.
much.
Exactly.
Um, and like sometimes I do get a little frustrated. I'm dealing with like a little nagging thing in my right foot on longer runs. Like once I hit 10, 15 plus miles, it starts to ache. But to
Right.
hear the way that you're working through it is beautiful. What is it about swimming for you that you just love so much?
Few people call me the dolphin whisperer. I've been swimming in the ocean in Kona for 35 years. Um, and so I swim with dolphins, and I mostly go out and swim, and I carry a little camera and take pictures and videos of dolphins and manta rays and turtles and whatever I think is interesting. So that's how I swim. I don't swim to race or anything like that. And I used to be a free diver, breath holding and a spearfisherman. I did that for probably a good 10 years, and everything's been water oriented. I was a body surfer, kind of world caliber body surfer up in Honolulu before I moved to Kona. Um, I was an All American water polo player, and of course, I swam at Indiana, was on American record relays, and same team as Mark Spitz. We both swam the
Wow.
same stroke. that's a whole nother story. And then I went on to coach, and then in 1972, when Mark won the 7 gold medals, I was the assistant coach. So I spent
Wow.
a lot of time, and we've become very good friends. He come to Hawaii and stay with me and all that stuff. So, um, yeah, so that's kind of a lot of water stuff, water polo, swimming, and then coaching at a national level for several years.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you probably that's probably where you feel more comfortable than land is in the
Yeah,
water.
yeah, yeah, and I was really honored, like 8, 9 years ago. I was honored to be accepted into the Hawaii Watermen's Hall of Fame. It was kind of with the Duke Kahanamoku, era, and they only take 4 people every year that kind of give back
Wow.
to the community and that are very water oriented and have been successful in water sports. And kind of what Duke did, he swam, he played a little water polo, he was a surfer, of course, and um, has all kinds of great stories. So
Of course.
there's a
Everyone's
movie out called Waterman that he's in, and I just saw it yesterday, and it's outstanding. So it's really cool.
I'll have to check it out. I love how you
Yeah,
say, of course. Everybody in Kona surfs.
yeah, yeah, they
Yeah.
do.
I'll tell you a visual that I still can't get out of my mind is so you mentioned, that you did body surfing in
Yeah,
Honolulu
yeah,
and, on the North Shore. So for
yeah,
people, especially people on the mainland that don't know, we're not talking 4 foot waves here. We're talking waves bigger than buildings, and it's just you and the wave. This is not going to be an easy request, but can you kind of tell me what that feels like, going through that?
yeah. The First of all, I would have never gone out there and body surfed unless you kind of build up to it like any other sport. And at the time, this was in the 70s. Pipeline was, of course, the wave, is the fastest wave, but I surfed several breaks out there. Uh, Most of the time, I would be sitting out in the lineup, just with my fins on, of course, and probably 15 or 20 surfers and me, a body surfer. So, because the wave is so fast, you've got to be in the right spot at the right time. You've got to make sure there's not a surfboard coming down because they can catch the wave before you do because they're faster. Um,
Mhm.
but I surfed it, and it was challenging and scary. The ocean is unbelievable, but getting stuck inside and with a 20-foot face coming down and you're in 3 feet of water with a rock on the bottom is really rough. So one time I was sitting out there and there was a helicopter overhead, going down. I see this rope come down with a guy on it and put someone on it, and this guy is just drooped over the rescue
Oh
thing,
man.
and the guy died, and he was 30 feet away from me. So you see a lot of that stuff. A lot of people come to Hawaii to surf, and they have no idea, especially the power of the North Shore waves in the wintertime. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a humbling. The ocean is a great teacher if you listen to it.
Is that one of the things that maybe draws you to it? Because you're clearly aware of these risks, and like you said, you try to make them calculated, right, by slowly building up to it. But at the same time, you keep going back in some form. Do you think there's like a sense of just like overall, like it humbles you, it challenges you physically, mentally? Is that what draws you back to it? Do you think?
Yeah, yeah, and it wasn't to see if I could surf it. I just build my way up. There's certain, there's a South Shore wave and there's East Shore waves, but the power of a 20, well, let's say a 10-foot North Shore wave is twice as powerful as a surf in Waikiki of the same size wave. So that speed, that power, if you wipe out and can't get up for a breath before the next wave comes, you're gonna maybe drown. And you come up and there's a foot of foam you're trying to breathe through. So
Yeah,
it's tough.
that's
It's
it.
really tough, and hitting the bottom is really dangerous. You guys break boards and break body parts and all kinds of stuff.
Oh man.
Uh,
Yeah, especially with like lava rock out there, it can definitely be difficult. But I know you've also done, tons of swimming, in the pool too, which one of the things that I remember when we talked about is, we talked about the Kona Ironman, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, me being a runner and just interested in endurance sports, and then when I heard that, you had like a pretty significant role in it,
yeah.
um,
I was the race director for the
yeah,
all Ironman. Yeah, in
yeah,
Kona.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, you are the race director. You put this beautiful race on for years. I remember asking you about it because the water, it's not that it scared me, it's that it was I would need to conquer that more than the others, right? Like I'm I feel really strong at running, biking. I feel comfortable on a bike. I think my perception would be I just would need to put the hours in on a bike, right? I
Yeah,
haven't trained
yeah,
those muscles. Swimming is one, like I would almost feel like I'd need to start with form and go from
totally,
there.
totally.
And
Swimming is all technique. It's all technique, and if you don't continuously try to change, like as swimmers get older, they just think that the more they train, the better they're going to get in swimming, but it's not the case. The Michael Phelpses and the world class swimmers constantly are tweaking their mechanics in every way, shape, or form. I mean, you're going to be in great aerobic shape, but that's the difference to being great. The Katie Ledeckis, the Caleb Dressels, and some of those guys that are phenomenal swimmers.
yeah.
Technique.
Well, let me ask about that because as an athlete, I understand that there's the more you dial in like your technique, the more awareness you need of every little body part, right? I mean, and you need to be aware of multiple things at one time. What is that something that you like train, and then on race day, do you kind of like let go and just let your body take over at that point? What's it
No,
like mentally?
yeah. I mean, it's funny because really to improve, you really got to take one little aspect of technique, whether it's the breathing, the head position, the recovery, the underwater pull, the body rotation, rolling to both sides, all that, but to get better, you just can only really think about one thing at a time. Usually in practice and going slow, you've got to swim slow. Um, in races, if it's a short race, like 50, 100, or 200 in a pool, you're really the technique is there. You're focused more on the pace and the competition and racing and swimming the race the way you want. But if it's like an Ironman 2.4 mile swim, you have time to focus. Hey, I've got to work on, keep the stroke long, work on the things that, and it keeps you thinking. And so swimming doesn't get boring because if you do it, but you don't want to stress on it. You want to think in a positive way and, it's kind of self-talk on the long open swims.
Yeah, that's I can't help but try to use that as a metaphor for life, right? We talked when we were setting up this podcast about what this podcast is, right? And it's about how through discipline people can find happiness. And I think sports a great way to teach people different life lessons. And like you were talking about, in life you need to focus on things. Like you need to try to improve things, your focus, like the way you work or whatever the case may be. But it has to be in like a light, positive manner. At some point, you have to, kind of like let go to your training.
Yeah, exactly.
I,
Exactly.
you mentioned something about before this call about visualization, that you were working with someone, and forgive me, I forget who it was, but you were working with someone that was big in the surfing world, and one of the huge piece of their training was visualization. Maybe you'll tell me a little bit about that story, but also what role visualization plays.
My background was in physical education and I got my master's, but I psychology to me, it was in the early phases when that wasn't such a priority in sport. But my coach really believed in it. Doc Councilman, he was world famous and was on 3 Olympic coaching staffs and stuff. But then I worked in the psychology department. I was a teaching associate in, Psych 101 classes with 150 people in it, and I worked in the psychology lab. So um, I think that was one of the differences in the way I coached and compared to others back, especially in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. But now you see more and more of it. A good friend of mine was the president of the sports psychologists of the United States, and she
Wow.
coached USA track and field and rhythmic gymnastics, and was sports psych for the Chicago Bears. So you can see a lot of the professional teams and stuff have that uh, strong influence, and how important that is. Going in, it's kind of been always on the back shelf for years, and the mental in any sport of prepping and visualization is so important. So yeah, Carissa Moore, who won the gold medal in Tokyo in the Olympics, her father swam for me for 10 years. And what he did, he said, most surfers just go surf. There's Kelly Slater and all these world-class surfers, and they just surf, and surf and surf, and the competitions come and they go surf. Well, he took Carissa when she was 10, 11, 12 years old and kind of implemented some of the things that he learned with me. Technique, of course, but then visualization, strength training, flexibility, et cetera, and incorporated that in her training. And she was a world champion, I think, 6 years, and won the gold medal in the first Olympics ever to be held in Tokyo. So it works, but it's an interesting aspect. And I think so many athletes don't use that, whether it's triathlon, swimming, biking, basketball, football, it doesn't matter. But positive visualization and being easy on yourself and whatever works. Some people go more into easy breathing or just have a few keywords right before they compete to put them in the state
Yeah.
that they be in. It's
Yeah.
really important.
I've come across visualization more with like I would say it's popularized by the book The Secret a long time ago about how to manifest reality and things like that. And I say that in a playful tone, although I genuinely believe it. I think there's a part there, but there's also, I've read studies about people visualizing lifting weights and seeing that their muscles strengthen over time, right? Like getting yourself there, getting yourself there and getting your brain really there is extremely powerful. So no wonder why you've had so much success swimming and coaching. What do you think it is? Do you think it's what I've always heard is it gives you the reps without having to actually go get them, like
Mhm.
physically, right? Like for example, whatever. Today, I went skiing this morning, and right, I skied we maybe 20 runs. I know it was about lunchtime. We're like, all right, we got to go back and work. Um, 20 runs is great, but it's only 20 runs. Like you can just sit there and just get, those runs if you really, visualize your, and train your body like that. Did you have any specific ways that did your visualization practice or?
You know what? Sure. And every situation's a little bit different. Um, Another thing that visualization I feel helps is pre-race. I mean, you can visualize in your training and all that stuff, but right before a big race or a big competition or whatever it is, I think it helps you relax. And going into a race too tense, you can be excited. You don't want to lose that because that helps. But how to balance that inner calm, just like the peaceful warrior kind of concept that we talked about. Um, but that, and every person is different. And when I was coaching them, some people would get freaked out before they race, and others not so much. And I just saw this movie on Duke Kahanamoku, and they were talking about him, and I think the Olympics in 1912. Can you imagine him trying to get to Europe or London from Hawaii? And then you have to take a boat to the West Coast, 2 weeks, take a train across country, and then take another boat and he didn't have a chance to train for like 2 months and go to the Olympics. But the funny
Wow.
story about him is he had fallen asleep under the bleachers and they couldn't find him before his race. He was so Hawaiian style, and I loved it, and so relaxed, and he just, that worked for him. And they got up and kicked everybody's butt, you know. So it's just amazing. Yeah. Um, but everyone, you need to get psyched, and naturally your heart rate's going to raise even before you dive off the block or the starting gun goes off. That's okay. You want to use that adrenaline, but you don't want to overdo it because then you can get, you know, So short races, you've got to really be ready, and longer races like an Ironman, which takes 9 to 16 hours, um, not
You
that
gotta
big
stay
a deal.
cool.
I see so many people at Ironman, that swims ready to start, and they're all in the water. You got 2,000 people around you, and they're just going take off on this swim. First 5 minutes, and you're going to be out there all day in the sun and the heat. By the time they get out of the swim and are on the bike or on the run, they're just walking and taking the aid and stuff like that. So, pacing yourself physically and mentally is really important.
Steve, I'll tell you, some of the runs I did down like Elite E Drive or, around, any of those beaches, Kua Bay, right? Like in those lava fields, even up north when we did, some by like some of those white sand beaches, but I was running in the lava
Yeah,
field. Whew. It's like whatever degree is on the thermostat, add 15 when you get the reflection off the
yeah.
black lava rock.
Well, you
It
got
is
the
hot.
highway and lava on both sides of you.
Oh,
Just hot. Just hot.
just hot. Yeah, it's different, but it's fun. You mentioned like the Hawaii style. One thing that I miss dearly is the Hawaiian energy. So people talk about the Big Island, right? Having just a lot of energy around it. But
Oh my God, yeah.
yeah, I mean with the mountain, with the ocean, all of that, the volcanoes, but the lifestyle there is something that I tried to, I think it's really important if you're going to experience something you enjoy it, see what you can take from it and keep with you. And I've tried to, it just there's an overwhelming sense of positive energy and peace there that is undescribable.
Yeah,
You just feel it in your soul.
absolutely. That I moved from Honolulu to the Big Island, and I kind of wanted to get out of the city and more country, and there's much more feel of Hawaii and Hawaiiana, and they call mana the power of the Big Island. I mean, Mauna Kea mountain, which has snow on it, and you can drive an hour, and all of a sudden you're in 80-degree water. Um, but it's the biggest mountain in the world. It's the Big Island is one of the newest landforms in the world. It's still active. Craters are blowing. We had a huge lava flow 4 years ago. Um, that there's a river of lava several miles long, a half mile wide, and 50 feet high. It's just incredible what goes on. So there's so much diversity, and I mean, you have, I think, 9 of the 11 weather areas on the Big Island, from desert to 20 degrees at top of Mauna Kea at 13,000 feet. So it's powerful. It's powerful. Yeah,
It,
you
re-
can
it
feel it. Yeah,
it really is wild. I mean, take a run on the Kona side, and then go over to Hilo, and it's like a tropical rainforest. I mean,
exactly.
it's
Exactly.
it really, it's something that I've certainly enjoyed. And I wanted to ask you something that you brought up the peaceful warrior. And something that I want to ask you is like, right, like, so Dan Millman's classical story there. Did I tell you he was on the podcast?
You had mentioned that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I have to look at. I have to check.
I'll share it with you for sure. His story, right? He became a world champion, right? And
He was a gymnast, right?
world champion gymnast.
Yeah.
And ultimately, his big revelation at 18 was, I am the best in the world at what I love the most, and I'm not happy, right? Like achieving that goal didn't change his happiness level from 6 to 8 or whatever the case may be. Now you've been really, I want to say fortunate, but I mean, you've obviously worked for it. You've been able to experience tons of great success. And then you've also been able to coach others where you've got to experience it as a coach, but they've experienced it as well. And you've got to seen it from other people. I think a lot of people are, especially I think probably younger people, if I thought about it, are chasing success, whatever that means to them, and goals and achieving things. And I very much believe in the power of goals, and I do think we should be productive. But what do you see with that correlation with happiness?
Yeah.
And
I think the biggest concern, everyone wants it, I would think, or not everyone, but a large amount of people just, hey, I want to be happy in life. Well, the question is, how do I get there? what do I do? Me, what do I do on a daily basis to achieve that? It's kind of the journey, not
Mhm.
the end. I mean, our goals, and it's best always, I think, to keep the goals realistic, number one, and short range, number two. I mean, everybody wants to make the Olympic team, but in swimming, let's say Michael Phelps was still swimming and the US only takes two athletes. Well, I'm not going to make unless I'm the second best in the world behind Michael Phelps, I ain't going to make. I mean, so many parents of the kids that I've coached, I want my kid to be on the Olympic team, so it's like, mm-mm.
Yeah.
I mean, in Hawaii, in 1976, I put a boy on the Olympic team. He's the only swimmer ever from Hawaii in the last 50 years to make the Olympic team, and it's hard, so that's unrealistic goals by the parents, and they kind of sometimes shed that pressure onto the kids, and then of course they'll quit, after a while,
Yeah.
so those short-term fun goals in whatever sport, swimming is great though for goals, you have different strokes and different times of the year, and if you're going to taper for certain meets and not so much focus on who you're racing, but
Your
racing
own
within
time.
yourself and setting your own goals for that particular event.
That it's so funny you say it. So when I asked at the end of the episode with Dan Millman, I said, "What's the number one thing you'd say to people?" And he said, "Stop comparing yourself to others."
Oh
And
yeah.
that's something I like about these individual sports that, you're racing the clock, if you will. You're really racing yesterday's version of yourself, right? There's they try to limit variables, right? The pools are the same length, size, and they have these things to limit the variables, and you can just go swim, right? And it's about, how well you've trained and how hard you focused and things like that. So that's because I grew up, Steve. I grew up. I never ran. I wouldn't even really consider myself much of a runner right now. I haven't done a
Oh my
race
God,
in.
you are a hell of a runner. Yeah, especially coming from a football background, which is so
Well,
explosive, and then now you're running, ultra marathons and stuff. Amazing. So
I
yeah.
I I appreciate that, but like in like I came from like football and basketball, and now going to like running these individual sports where it's just against the clock. I'm finding that to be extremely, I don't know, it fills my soul. Even like I told you, I've been trying to ski and I've been trying to rock climb. Like these individual sports, there's a huge beauty in team sports, especially at a young age. Teaches you how to communicate and work with others. But there's something about these sports, these individual sports, especially some of these more endurance sports, that I'm finding to really just be like metaphors for everything else in life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's funny. I didn't even realize this sweatshirt that I'm wearing. It says the 4 state challenge. Um,
Is that a
my well, it's one we made up actually. My friend made this sweatshirt. My
book?
friend Billy Firestein made this sweatshirt. Four of us, we went through Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia in one day on the Appalachian Trail. It's 44 miles.
Oh my
And we just did it as like a hike. And I could tell you, all four of us who did it, it is like, of course, I mean, all of us had pains, right? In different parts of the body. My knee was hurting, someone's foot, whatever. We were exhausted. It was December 29th in the Appalachian Mountains. It wasn't
oh
warm. So, and every one of us talks about it as one of the most beautiful memories we've had. And it's so funny because, in the moment you might have not seen that, but that's the reflection on it. And I don't even know how to explain that. I don't think many do, but it's definitely it's definitely, a theme that I could see someone like you just understands, internally.
totally. That's fantastic. You didn't tell me about that one before. That's
Um, yeah, it was definitely a fun one. Hey, before we hopped on this call, you mentioned that you had a story about Jesse Owens that I never got to hear. I don't know if it's too long of a story for
I'll
for
try to
this.
keep it really short if you want. Um, I grew up in Chicago. Jesse Owens was from Chicago. The people that don't know, Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals in the 1936 Olympics, and he almost didn't go. The NAACP didn't want him to go because Hitler was there and of course, didn't like blacks at all. But anyway, So he goes to the Olympics, wins his gold medal. So 1964 comes around, the Olympics are in Tokyo. They had some contest in Chicago where each high school, and there are a lot of high schools, pick one kid, and I was the kid from my little boys' Catholic high school, interviewed, some sports writers and VIPs in the Chicago area, and they took 6 of us, all expenses paid, to Tokyo to the Olympics with Jesse Owens and his wife.
Wow.
So it was, I was still 16. So we get there, and Jesse was super famous. Everyone knew him. He was probably the best athlete in the world, most recognized, even in the 60s. He was probably in his 50s and stuff like that. So we get there, and Jesse got us. LBJ was the president of the United States. So the Olympic team had white cowboy hats. So Jesse gets us. There were 3 black kids and 3 white kids that I was with. I became really good friends of Kenny Maxey, who ended up being the captain of the basketball team at Michigan 4 years later. Anyway, so we get the white cowboy hats, and we're walking around. Jesse lets us in the Olympic Village. We come out of the Olympic Village. There's a big gate, and there's like 200 people wanting autographs, for the athletes from all over the world. So we walk out, and they start. Japanese. We couldn't speak Japanese. They couldn't speak English. Autograph. I said, no, we're not. We're just. You couldn't explain it to them, so we just stopped and started signing autographs. Because we had the cowboy hats on,
That is so funny.
Yeah. So I wanted to go and see all the sports. So we were sitting on the court at all the basketball games when they went on the court with the players, And then I went to the track, and there was a guy named Bob Hayes that was there. It was Tokyo. And he was the fastest in the world in the 100. So I didn't go just to the bleachers. I got on the track. I'm in the dugout where he's ready to run. This is a true story I got. And some guy just wrote an article about this, losing his shoes before the race. I'm standing here 5 feet away is Bob Hayes. He goes, I can't find my shoes. And so the guy comes down here, try my shoes. They didn't fit. He goes, there's a guy that's in the 800. Go see if his shoes fit. Ready to race. Couldn't find his shoes. He left them under his bed at the Olympic Village.
Yeah.
Right before the 100. Gets this guy's shoes. They fit. Gets them on. Gets to the track. And that just happens. The 100's right in front of where I'm standing. There was like not many people around. He races. Boom. 100 right in front of me, breaks. He goes 10 flat. There was no hundreds back then, so it could have been a 9.9. They were saying, but 10 flat. Comes back in. I shake his hand. He had to grab the shoes and give it to the other guy because the guy was in the next in the 800. So that was, kind of the story with Jesse and with Bob Hayes. Unbelievable. I mean, I was just a kid. I've held that story in my head for years, and probably a handful of people only know that story until now.
Isn't that's beautiful, isn't it? Like, do you think that had like a lasting impression on you about because you obviously surrounded yourself by sports, and you see the way he prepared. Did he stay pretty cool under pressure
when he was starting to lose it toward the end, because he couldn't find shoes, I mean, it was the finals. This was the finals. He had done some pre-qual races and stuff, but it was just unbelievable.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's great. You've had some experiences, man. I mean, things I wish we had time to dive into every story, talking about growing up and being friends with Coach K and all the stuff you've done, with the national coaching team. That is awesome. And I love to ask what's got you stoked now? I mean, I hear you you're still trying to keep swimming. What else got you really excited right now?
I'm just trying to do that to try to stay fit, and try to stay semi-healthy. So the shoulders and the knees and all kinds of stuff, so I can hardly push off the wall and stuff like that. So, but if it doesn't happen, it's okay. But at least, again, it's a goal I'm trying to do this year. And if it doesn't happen, at least I've tried. It was a journey, and so yeah, it's challenging. It's frustrating because there's a lot of pain involved in some of this.
Yeah, but it is about the journey, and you have such a great mindset on you. And I know you're being humble. You told me in the gym that you in the 75 plus to get the world champion too. So you'll get it done. You'll get it done. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Steve, I think it's about time to wrap up here. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know this is not something everyone always feels comfortable doing, but I just appreciate you giving me your time and us getting the chance to talk and share your story too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well, I
really
really
beautiful.
enjoy what you're doing and trying to share to how people improve their lives, and by hearing other people's stories and the obstacles that they have to go through, I think is great. There's so much negativity in our world right now with COVID and Ukraine and all kinds of stuff. So keeping it's hard to keep that center and even leaning toward a positive way of life, but you know, keep working on it. Yeah, never,
Yeah. Well,
never.
we hear people doing things like you. It's hard not to. So
Yeah,
thank you so much, Steve.
you're
I really appreciate it.
my
And
pleasure.
I hope everyone enjoyed.
All right, thanks, my friend.